doing all these things.
So I tell you what we'll do then is, Shivang, you've sort of come along for the ride in some of this, and we've been explaining ISO 19650 and trying to make it relatable and having that discussion around why it's important and how to implement it and how Planoly has templates to help you. But when we get back to this term, does it make sense? Is it resonating? Is the concept of a shared language, everyone talking the same way, following the same standards, the same steps for tendering, the bidding process, the understanding of how to develop task lists that people can agree to, the concept of an information protocol for legal language, and the workflow to standardize for checking and automation. How much of that makes sense? Which parts of that are important for the industry, most important to start with? What are your thoughts on what we've shared so far, Shivang?
Yeah. So I strongly feel, Clive, that to me, from where I am seeing with all these years of experience, and I am watching Indian BIM market very closely, Indian construction industry very closely, and I am fortunate, being an architect and having post graduation in construction management. So I am not just seeing the architecture domain; I am also seeing the construction domain. And looking at both, I can tell you that defining scope before we start working, because I have encountered many a times that people start the working and then in between they start fighting that this was not my responsibility, this was your responsibility. Now that guy says, no, this was your responsibility. And sometimes, like right now, I can tell you, right now we are working with a construction company very big in India, and they want us to have a look at their BIM models. And I was surprised that more than 80% of their BIM models were classified as IFC building element proxy or IFC building element. That's it. So this was my audit report, that from a company who wants to automate their checking process, does not even know that they have to define the elements under IFC classification for any software or even any human also to do audit for them. How do you perform audit when more than 80% of things are IFC building element proxy or IFC building elements? So they want us to check. They want us to check whether a particular MEP flow terminal is within the range of a particular opening, let's say. But opening is not defined as opening and flow terminal is not defined as flow terminal. So how do we check? Then in that case, it becomes a manual process. So this is first thing. So, if IFC flow terminal is not defined as flow terminal and if opening is not defined as opening, how do you do the checking? Then in that case, it is manual checking, more or less. I mean, you cannot automate that. So yes, one thing is important. We have to define from the beginning that, okay, this is the scope of work, all these things have to be defined, then only it can be checked, then only it can be, clash detection, or usual clash detection is nothing, it is just one element to another element. But life is not that simple in built environment world. So yes, that is important to define who does what. Second most important thing for Indian market, nobody is even thinking about it right now, but it is going to be the biggest problem by end of 2025, and that is legal terms and legal contract. This is going to be another important point by end of 2025. And obviously, third point is when we start using BIM on large scale projects or public projects. The third thing is obviously about checking. So yeah, these three things I feel that defining, legal aspect, and checking are three important things.
So the concept of our industry, I'm a civil engineer, and whenever I was going on building sites and doing things, I'd love getting on with it. I'd love actually the installation process. And I'd always get my project manager in my ear. It would be, where's the method statement? Where's your planning? Where's your all of these really detailed steps that you need to do beforehand? And on a construction site, that's because safety is so highly important. So therefore, there are things that you have to do for safety to be accounted for. When it comes to building a 3D model, it's pretty cool to just build a 3D model, and it's not so cool to plan out early enough all of the things you're going to put in the model and have all of the stakeholders come in and say, I need this in the model. I need this information at this time. Who is going to be the person that delivers it, and have accountability in that workflow? So Akos, come on in and tell us how, when we start talking about these aspects, how does the ISO 19650 workflow help us to do that? Accountability. How do we get accountability in our workflows today?
Well, I mean, maybe not only ISO 19650, maybe referring to 17412 as well, I guess, when we really go into the details of information need, and first of all, defining what the purpose is. I think that's a key. Why are we using or why are we exchanging information in the first place? And then discussing all the different aspects of that information exchange, whether we are talking about the geometrical aspect or information aspect, and yeah, why are we doing this, and how we are going to fulfill the need, and what is exactly needed to for the purpose. I think those are the important parts. Maybe not fully answering the question though.
Well, that's the part that so often is missed. So if you start with why, a lot of teams understand, start with why, it'd be great, but it doesn't often happen, mainly because it's not a mandated step in the workflow. So ISO 19650, accompanied by 17412, this concept of level of information need, wrapped in a contract, that's where the magic happens. It's a process that is saying, this is how we go about defining and what we define. So from the purpose through to what has to happen, who has to do it, how much has to happen, all tied into a framework that everyone is talking in the same way, wrapped in legal language, filtered first for that party, for that team that's doing the work, collaboratively created. So it's not just a mandate, you will do these things. It's actually a collection of teams, their task information delivery plans, those combined, filtered into contracts, wrapped in language that makes sense, and then that sets the project off for a successful start, rather than everyone starting in their own silo, creating their own deliverables, what they think they might need to be able to create, and then ending up in that checking process that Shivang just talked about, where none of that information has been created in a way that can be even standardized and checked. So we really do suffer in our workflows so many times on a design and construction project, because that's the way we've done it. Everyone creates their own types of contracts, everyone creates their own deliverables in silos, and then there's no way to bring all of those things together very easily. So BIM has helped us to get there, because you can start merging these models. Clash detection became this big, very eye-opening, very low-hanging fruit, easy to get started way of getting into BIM. And now we're starting to see, that statement of the I in BIM being so much more important than just the geometry. And how do we go about using it? How do we go about getting the right information at the right time by the right people for the right reasons? Well, you need to wrap it in some kind of contract, because in our industry, we only do it if we get paid for it and if it's in the contract. So how do we do that? ISO 19650, that sort of workflow. And as Shivang said, the concept of who does what, the wrapped in legal terms and the automated checking makes that a lot easier. How it actually gets done is another thing. So Shivang, how would you go about starting this workflow? If you had to just get started on a project today and your team had no real idea of how to implement the workflow, what would you recommend? How would you recommend that they get started?
Yeah. So to start with, the first and most important thing is to define, define the like jointly. There should be because I have gone through BIM manager training, so I always believe that there should always be a meeting before we start the project. So kickoff, kind of kickoff meeting where all the consultants come together. And I am of an opinion that not only consultants who are going to manage, or I mean just the consultants who are going to construct the building, design and build is one part. I am of an opinion that we should from day one also bring in facility managers in place. Why? Because facility managers usually will drive the information requirement, and that is the first step everyone should come for, on a consensus with, that what is the information requirement. Till we define the information requirement, I have seen people doing lot of work. I would not say they don't work. I have seen people doing lot of work, but that work has no direction. So to have a direction, for me, the most important thing is to discuss and streamline information requirements. What kind of information will be required for designing the project, constructing the project, and also managing and maintaining the project. This is where I would want to start as an architect, as a BIM manager, that let's first define this, what is the information requirement for your project, and so on. I mean, you can have more insights on that, but information requirement is first thing.
You mentioned there being trained and being as a BIM manager. I'm sharing my screen now because I just got my certificate, and I have completed the information manager level 1 basics course. So I think that it's worthwhile sharing how to get access to training like this. Well, we have some that's available for free, and it takes you from zero to hero on the ISO 19650 path. It's available in the training tab on plannerly.com. So if you go to plannerly.com, you can sign up for this basics training and then also get the advanced and expert levels that really follow through that process to get certified, and you get your individual certification as a result from that. So yeah, we're really excited to see hundreds of people now going through that course, and it's all for free, especially if you leave us a nice review. We'll share the next parts of that course with you as well. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, so I am saying that information requirement and defining information requirement is the most important thing, and probably from training people can have some idea. But I would want Akos to talk more about the kind of information requirements and why they are important, so that it gives a proper direction. There should be a thinking direction that what all types of information requirements are there.
I think I would just bring up another example, pretty much a similar audit that you brought up as an example. So I've been invited to many projects halfway, so the project was already ongoing, and I was invited as for example, doing quantification out of the model, creating cost estimations, and so on and so on. And I always felt like the typical scenario is that we have a model. You are an expert of quantification, so do your job and tell me how much concrete I need when. But the same situation as you mentioned. So nothing was classified properly. No, I didn't find any reliable data in the model. I couldn't tell whether something was there on purpose or was copied from another project or just a default setting from a modeling application. So I think I can just echo what you said, that setting up the requirements, the different aspects early enough I think that's key to success. And I think the more use cases we can define on the project, or milestones or purposes, the better from a certain perspective. So I'm not saying that we should have too many. I'm saying that we should have frequent data drops, and with this frequency, we can increase the information that we are requesting, or increase the geometry that goes into our models as the purpose requires. So what we should really be focusing on is, I think, two things. One is keeping the end result in mind, and starting requesting the information, knowing how it is going to be used. Also, it includes a little bit of maybe data exchange and test runs, because software applications are being developed rapidly. The way they exchange data might be also changing from version to version, so it never hurts to do that kind of test runs. So that's one thing, and the other thing is to go for the minimum. So avoid over delivering, and also, of course, under delivering. But again, having such information in the model that you cannot rely on because you were not expected that, and you don't know how it distorts the picture, I think that's really a dangerous and a bad thing. So I think I'm just echoing what you are saying about the importance of requesting the right information at the right time. But I think that's crucial.
Those
I
two
strongly
points.
feel, sorry, Clive, you continue.
Yeah. I was just going to say, to echo those 2 points. So they're really fundamental and difficult in doing today. As we've started to do more BIM, there's been a lot of attempts to define information requirements, and most of those have been spreadsheets, and it's very easy to fill in an LOD number in lots of different cells across a spreadsheet, and it might look good when you've got like an LOD like 100, 200, 300, 400, but it doesn't actually work like that. And I think that there's over prescribing that need for a development of a model at certain stages for no reason. There's no purpose specifically behind it. There's not been a clear enough definition that can be followed, and also there hasn't been a way of reducing the scope. So defining the right level of information is really critically important, as Akash said. And then the second part to that, and obviously we would say use a database to do that rather than Excel, that follows that framework for level of information need. And then the second part is when you think about all of the different tools in a workflow, that process for mobilization and for testing to make sure all of those steps work is critically important, and it's actually part of the steps inside of the ISO 19650 workflow. So ISO 19650 has that specifically. How do we mobilize a team? How do we test the common data environment? How do we test the production of deliverables and checking processes? How do we make sure that when we go and do this on the project for real, that we're not finding out those technical challenges, and we can iron them out first? So yeah, really good points. And it's great that the workflow specifically focus on purpose and also has the checks and balances as well.
You mentioned LOD, and that reminded me. Last year I was attending a conference, and I heard an architect who was on panel of discussion saying, my office work at LOD 700 now. So yeah, that day I was surprised that from where this LOD 700 came. But anyways, yeah. So there are people saying that we work at LOD 400, 500, 600, 700. I mean, for them, LOD and 5D, 6D, 7D is all jumbled up in their head. Anyways, coming back to our topic, what I feel is, if data management is not done properly from day one, then your collaboration and information exchange is of an exercise of pointing fingers at each other. If you have not defined your project information requirement, or you have not defined your organization information requirement, and then then you will not manage your data, what kind of data you are going to need from day one, and then you end up doing exchange of model, and you call it this is my information building information model, but there is no point because there is an issue. So I mean, why I came to Plannerly, and I was very much ahead of my time. If I tell you about last 1 year, I was way ahead of my time. But I could see that this will come one day. There'll be a need to have a platform which does this information planning and information exchange based on some standards. So when you do information planning and data planning and information exchange on ISO workflow, it saves a lot of time and it is need of an hour. And when you have done this, then you can go to the next stage of data checking or analysis. So these three things I feel are connected, and we have to connect them back to our last episode, that was importance of ISO standards and why they are important. So I think we have we have to have this link of workflow of documentation and data management, and then you have to have information exchange based on ISO compliance. So yeah, this is what we talk, and which is very important. Yeah.
Completely agree. And I think that coming back to this concept of having a workflow, just to kind of key in on this, let me open this as a workflow as well so we can see it. The principle is not that much different from what we do today. The first part of the workflow is that we develop requirements. The second part is about getting the right requirements in a contract. The third part is about delivery on those and closing out and trying to learn from it. So there's no, it's not rocket science. It's not a completely new way of working. It's just helping us do what we have done for years, but in a more structured workflow. And so that we can communicate much more clearly together, and we can communicate earlier with a purpose and a framework that allows us to understand exactly what people are asking for. So this is really, this important workflow is about understanding the appointing parties and using an information manager if they don't understand what they are themselves, tendering for the right exchange of information, going through that process to appoint a party with a BIM execution plan, as we mentioned about the mobilization plan, and going through that process to understand exactly whether these systems work together, contracting for the right responsibilities with the master information delivery plan with the tasks from the teams that are working on the project, and then being able to mobilize and actually track these so that we can check, did we get the things that we asked for, and can we learn from those lessons? It's a really, really clear way of doing things, from assessing what the needs are through to delivering and learning so that we can improve on the next project.
To sum it up, we can say that if you don't want to fight later, plan early.
I love it. Yep. Don't plan late. Plan early with Plannerly. You said it.
Don't fight later, plan early with Plannerly.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you could do a lot of this with other databases. We've created a product that suits this workflow, that's dedicated for our industry. But yeah, you can build databases that try to connect these things together. Please don't use Word documents. Please don't use Excel. They're brilliant.
That is big no.
They're great products for the purpose, but they're not collaborative as a process, as a workflow. They're not designed in a way that can be automatically checked against models. So there's lots of things that you would have to do manually to make those things even remotely. They're very risky in that workflow. So please use a database. Please connect it up. Please use the Building Smart Data Dictionary. Please understand and share the information delivery specifications, IDS, with teams so that they can understand in a machine readable and a human readable way what the requirements are. Please contact us and ask us for some support if there's anything that you can you need. We're here to help you. Yeah, let us know your experiences. We're also learning along this journey as well with you.
So in conclusion, before you start your BIM project, have a clear information requirement set that will help you to have a clear information exchange, and that will help you to have a clear, secure database which you can use later on while managing and maintaining your building. This is the real purpose of going BIM way. If you are just using BIM to create model where you can cut sections easily, then that is not even tip of BIM berg. The real way of going BIM way is define your information requirement, do information exchange based on set parameters, and secure your information data. And when you can do all this complying with ISO standards, best. And don't use Word or Excel spreadsheets. That is not the right way. Nobody opens it or reads it. So define your own way, or we have defined Plannerly way for you. So you have to choose. You have to take this wheel or reinvent the wheel, but do this. At least this is the clear-cut baseline requirement. Any closing thoughts, Akash?
I think beautifully summarized. I think I will take your quote and I will use it probably on social media. Don't fight late, plan early. I like it. I like it.
Perfect.
Thank you for joining us this evening, everyone. And it was pleasure as always. And those who are listening live, you can tell your friends to listen or watch our YouTube channel later also for the recorded session. That's Shivang for you, for BIM understanding. That's Clive and Akash signing off for the evening.